The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars and worlds, many still unexplored by even the most daring civilizations. Among these stars, far beyond the bustling trade routes and well-known systems, lay the planet Lyrath. Its surface glowed with soft green light, and its oceans shimmered with colors unknown to most species. Lyrath had once been peaceful, prosperous, and advanced. The Virelians, its inhabitants, were a small but intelligent race, known for their delicate structures and keen minds. But despite all their technological achievements, they were fragile. Their world had always been safe until now. It began with tremors, first small, almost unnoticed, shaking the ground for a few seconds. Then came the storms. Not ordinary storms, but massive energy storms that ripped across the skies, lighting up the green clouds with jagged blue and violet streaks. Buildings crumbled under the force, communication networks failed, and the Virelians found themselves powerless. Their technology could shield against minor disturbances, but nothing in their history had prepared them for this. The largest storm, the Heartstorm, as the Virelians would soon call it, loomed over the capital city, growing in size and intensity by the hour. It was only a matter of time before it destroyed everything. Desperate, the Virelians reached out across the stars. Their message was simple but urgent. "Help us, or our world will end." The signal traveled for light years, crossing through empty space and busy trade lanes, until it finally reached the Galactic Council. The council chambers were filled with representatives from dozens of species. Their voices echoed as they debated what to do. Some argued that Lyrath was too remote, too dangerous, and that sending a fleet could risk their own civilizations. Others suggested monitoring from afar, perhaps offering aid later if they survived. Then the humans spoke. The human representative, Ambassador Rena Solis, rose to her feet. She was tall, confident, with eyes that seemed to burn with determination. "We will help," she said simply. "We do not have the largest fleet ready, and it may seem weak compared to other forces, but we will go. We will not let a civilization fall while we watch." Some members of the council scoffed. "Your fleet is too small, sending older ships." "It is symbolic at best, nothing more." Rena smiled faintly. "Symbols are important, but so is courage. Our fleet may be small, but our crews are resourceful, and sometimes that matters more than size." Within weeks, the human fleet prepared for departure. It was modest, consisting of older frigates and lightly armed exploration ships. These ships were considered obsolete for major battles, yet they were reliable, nimble, and maintained by some of the best engineers in the galaxy. Captain Alina Voss was chosen to lead the fleet. She had a reputation for thinking creatively and solving impossible problems. Though the fleet was small, her crew was skilled, loyal, and brave. On the eve of departure, Alina stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Horizon Dawn. The stars stretched endlessly before her, and the green-blue dot of Lyrath glimmered faintly in the distance. She looked at her crew, all nervous yet determined. "We may not be the strongest fleet in the galaxy," she said, "but we are the humans who will try. Our job is not to impress others, it is to save lives. That is what matters." Lieutenant Chen, the fleet's science officer, tapped at her console. "The energy readings from Lyrath are chaotic. The storms are massive, and they respond unpredictably to electromagnetic activity. Navigation will be extremely difficult," Alina nodded. "Then we adapt. Humans are good at adapting, Lieutenant. That's why we're here." The fleet launched at first light, moving through the black sea of stars. Other species watched with curiosity and doubt. How could the galaxy's smallest, weakest fleet hope to reach Lyrath and save it from annihilation? Even within the human fleet, tension ran high. The journey was long, and each light tower brought new challenges. By the time they reached the outskirts of Lyrath's system, the first storms were visible. They were enormous, twisting masses of energy that lit the skies like impossible lightning, though the light came from no sun. The Horizon Dawn led the fleet cautiously. Alina's voice echoed across comms. "Keep formation tight. We stay together, we watch each other's backs. And remember, storms are not walls, they are puzzles waiting to be solved." The Virelians, monitoring the human approach, were both terrified and hopeful. They had sent countless signals to the council before, many ignored or delayed. No species had ever volunteered so quickly, and certainly not with such humility. The humans came without boast, without demand, carrying nothing but their wits and willpower. To the Virelians, it was almost unimaginable. As the fleet entered Lyrath's orbit, the scale of the disaster became clear. Cities were in chaos. Energy shields flickered and failed. Massive creatures native to Lyrath, once peaceful, fled the storms in panic. The Heartstorm, a swirling vortex of pure energy, hovered over the capital, consuming everything in its path. Satellite images showed destruction spreading rapidly, and time was short. Alina gathered her commanders. "We will divide and conquer," she said. "Frigates will stabilize sectors near the cities. Exploration vessels will probe the storms and gather data. Science teams prepare to analyze energy fluctuations. If we can predict the storm's behavior, even partially, we can save lives." The first missions were perilous. Ships darted between lightning arcs, shields strained, and small errors could have led to disaster. Yet the humans persisted. They repaired one another's ships mid-flight, used creative formations to block storm surges, and improvised solutions that even the most advanced AI would have struggled to calculate. Each success built confidence. Each failure taught lessons. In one sector, Lieutenant Chen discovered something remarkable. Certain energy pulses from their ships caused the storm to react predictably, slowing its growth for precious minutes. "It's not a perfect solution," Chen reported, "but it's enough to stabilize a city for evacuation." Alina smiled. "Then we give the Virelians that time. That is all anyone can ask." The Virelians, watching from their ground stations, could hardly believe what they were seeing. Ships too small, crews too few, yet their actions were saving lives. Children trapped in buildings were rescued as the human fleet cleared paths through debris. Communication networks were restored temporarily, allowing the Virelians to coordinate evacuations. Despite the successes, danger was never far. Storms shifted unpredictably and some cities were lost. Yet even in the face of failure, the humans did not retreat. Alina often reminded her crews, "We may not save everyone, but we can save some. That is enough to keep hope alive." As Part 1 draws to a close, the fleet faces its greatest challenge yet, approaching the Heartstorm, which grows larger and more volatile with every hour. Sensors indicate that it could consume the capital entirely within a day. Other species observers doubt that even the human's ingenuity can match such raw energy. But Alina knows that strength is more than size or firepower. "We are not just ships," she tells her crew. "We are humans. We think, we create, we never give up. That is how we win." And so, with stars ahead and the Heartstorm looming, the human fleet prepares to face the unimaginable, armed only with their courage, creativity, and unshakable resolve. The Heartstorm raged above the capital of Lyrath like a living creature. Lightning-like energy arcs danced across the green skies, crackling with raw power that could tear apart even the strongest buildings. The smaller storms that had threatened other cities had already tested the limits of the human fleet, but nothing prepared them for this. Sensors across the horizon dawn buzzed continuously, warning of sudden shifts in energy, magnetic surges, and unpredictable turbulence. Captain Alina Voss stood on the bridge, staring at the swirling mass of power. Her crew moved with precision, checking readings, adjusting shields, and monitoring communications. The fleet of older frigates and lightly armed exploration ships might have seemed weak to an outsider, but each vessel carried a skilled crew capable of thinking on their feet. This would be their greatest challenge yet. "Lieutenant Chen," Alina called, "report. What can we do against that thing?" Chen, a young but brilliant scientist, adjusted her glasses and pointed to the holographic display of the Heartstorm. "It's unlike anything we've seen. The storm is semi-intelligent, responding to changes in energy around it, but I think we can predict its movement if we apply the right sequence of pulses from our ships." Alina raised an eyebrow. "Sequence? Are you saying we can control it?" Chen shook her head. "Not control. Influence, we can nudge its path away from the capital, maybe even slow it down, but it will take coordination and precision. One mistake and we could lose the city completely." Alina smiled faintly. "Then we make no mistakes." The human fleet divided into teams. Frigates formed protective barriers, creating a moving wall between the Heartstorm and the capital. Exploration vessels flew ahead, scanning for weak points, gathering data, and transmitting it back to Chen's team. Civilian ships, normally used for transport or trade, were repurposed as mobile shields, their hulls absorbing parts of the storm's energy. Every ship had a role, and every crew member knew it. As they approached the storm, the sheer scale became terrifying. Towering columns of energy twisted and writhed, striking in unpredictable patterns. Sensors overloaded, shields flickered, and alarms rang continuously. Stay calm, Alina instructed, her voice steady over the comms. Focus on your role, stick to the plan. Even so, the storm pushed back. A sudden surge knocked a frigate out of formation, sending it spinning toward the energy arcs. The crew fought to regain control, but the ship was battered and strained. Other human vessels quickly adjusted, creating a new formation to shield their ally. It was chaotic, yet coordinated. One by one, ships executed Chen's pulse sequences. Tiny bursts of energy shot from the fleet toward the storm. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then slowly, parts of the storm began to shift. A massive energy arc veered away from the capital. Cheers erupted in the comms. It's working, Chen said, relief in her voice. The Viorlians, observing from their ground stations, were stunned. Their most advanced technology had failed to influence the storm. Yet the humans, with their small fleet and daring tactics, were making a difference. They had no massive energy weapons, no invincible shields, only creativity, courage, and determination. Still, success was never guaranteed. As the fleet continued, the Heartstorm reacted to the humans' interference. Lightning strikes became more erratic, and sudden energy surges threatened to tear ships apart. Alina knew they needed to adapt quickly. Modify the pulse sequence, she ordered Chen. Try to anticipate the storm's next move, not just react. Chen worked frantically, analyzing patterns in the storm's behavior. It's responding to pressure points, she explained. If we create controlled surges in specific areas, we can redirect most of its energy. It will take time, but it's possible. Meanwhile, smaller teams on the fleet performed daring maneuvers. Frigates flew close to massive energy arcs, using their hulls to absorb energy while guiding the storm away from civilian sectors. Exploration ships zipped between gaps in the storm, collecting data and feeding it back in real time. The human fleet moved like a living organism, every part supporting the others, every action calculated yet flexible. One of the most remarkable moments came when a civilian transport vessel, normally used to ferry goods and passengers, was placed in the center of a sector threatened by the storm. The crew, initially terrified, worked together to modify the ship's energy systems, turning it into a makeshift energy anchor. The storm reacted violently, but slowly, the vessel held it in place long enough for evacuation teams to rescue hundreds of Viorlian citizens. Alina watched this and felt a surge of pride. Humans can make anything work, she said softly. We don't need to be the biggest or the strongest, we just keep going. The storm seemed endless, and exhaustion began to show among the crew. Sleep was rare. Adrenaline fueled every action. Yet even in fatigue, ingenuity thrived. Chen discovered that by combining pulses from multiple ships in precise intervals, they could amplify the effect exponentially. Ships that seemed weak individually became powerful when synchronized. Alina saw this as a perfect moment for a larger maneuver. She gathered her commanders. We will coordinate a combined strike, she said. Each ship will contribute a small pulse, but together we can move the Heartstorm enough to save the capital. Timing is everything. The fleet moved into position. Sensors displayed real-time storm activity, showing chaotic patterns of energy surges. Every crew member held their breath. Alina counted down. 3, 2, 1, execute. Tiny energy bursts fired from each ship, combining in a complex sequence. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the Heartstorm twisted, deviating from the capital. Sparks of blue energy arced harmlessly into empty sky. The capital's skies cleared, just enough to allow emergency teams to stabilize key structures and rescue civilians. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Even the Viorlians, previously unsure, now watched in awe. Their voices, usually soft and cautious, sounded excited and relieved. They had never seen courage and intelligence combined so perfectly. But the fight was far from over. The Heartstorm still loomed, and its unpredictable nature meant it could strike anywhere. Alina knew they had only delayed disaster, not eliminated it. We've bought time, she said to her crew, and time is everything. We keep learning, adapting, and fighting. That's what humans do. Over the next hours, the fleet continued its efforts. They guided smaller storms away from populated regions, stabilized power networks, and coordinated evacuations. Each success built confidence. Each action inspired the Viorlians to contribute, using their knowledge to complement the humans' tactics. Together, they formed a cooperative team, bridging species and cultures in the face of crisis. Alina often paused to reflect. Her fleet was considered weak by others, yet their creativity, teamwork, and courage made them formidable. Ships that others dismissed as obsolete were now essential. Even civilians contributed in small but meaningful ways. The lesson was clear. Strength was not measured in size or firepower, but in resourcefulness, ingenuity, and the willingness to act. As night fell over Lyrath, the storms had diminished slightly, though the Heartstorm still glowed ominously above the capital. The fleet gathered for a brief respite. Crew members repaired ships, recalibrated systems, and caught what little rest they could. Alina walked among them, offering encouragement and listening to their concerns. "We are making a difference," she said softly. "We have slowed the storm, saved lives, and shown what humans can do, but the Heartstorm is still dangerous. Tomorrow, we face it head-on, together." Chen nodded. "If we can synchronize more pulses and predict its behavior, we may be able to finally stabilize the entire system." Alina smiled. "Then we do that, because we are humans and humans never stop trying." The Virelians, now more hopeful than ever, began preparing for a coordinated effort with the humans. Their initial skepticism had vanished, replaced by awe and admiration. The human fleet, considered weak at the start, had already proven itself capable of incredible feats. And this was only the beginning. By the end of Part 2, the scene was set for the ultimate confrontation. The Heartstorm still threatened the capital, but the humans had shown the galaxy that even a small, underestimated fleet could achieve greatness. Their ingenuity, courage, and determination had inspired hope, not just for the Virelians, but for all who witnessed their actions. As the fleet positioned itself for the final effort, Alina reflected. The galaxy often judged strength by size, firepower, and reputation. But what truly mattered, she knew, was heart, intelligence, and the refusal to give up. And in these qualities, humans were unmatched. Tomorrow, they would face the Heartstorm as one. And no matter the outcome, humanity's legend would continue to grow among the stars. The morning sky over Lyrath burned with strange colors. The Heartstorm, a colossal swirl of energy and light, hung over the capital like a living beast, thrashing in every direction. The human fleet, still small and modest compared to fleets of other species, lined up in precise formation. Every ship hummed with energy, shields at full power, engines ready to respond instantly. Captain Alina Voss stood on the bridge of the Horizon Dawn, eyes fixed on the storm. Her crew moved with calm urgency, performing final checks and recalibrations. They had faced smaller storms, they had stabilized cities, they had guided hundreds of Virelians to safety. But this was the Heartstorm. One mistake, one miscalculation, and the capital would be gone. Alina took a deep breath. "This is it, our strongest storm yet. But we are humans, we adapt, we act, we never stop. Today we show what humanity is capable of." Lieutenant Chen nodded beside her, hands flying across the control panel. "We've synchronized the pulse generators on every ship. If we can maintain precision, we can nudge the storm just enough to dissipate its most dangerous currents. Timing is critical." Alina smiled faintly. "Then let's not waste it." The fleet moved forward, cutting through turbulent skies and energy arcs. The Heartstorm reacted instantly, sending waves of raw energy in every direction. Shields strained, engines pushed to maximum, but the humans pressed on. Every ship had a role, every crew member a task. Coordination was their greatest weapon. The first attempt to influence the storm showed promise. Tiny arcs of energy from the fleet met the Heartstorm, and for a brief moment, a section of the storm twisted harmlessly away from the city. Cheers erupted across the ships, but Alina quickly reminded her crews, "Don't celebrate yet, the storm is still alive. Focus, every second counts." The Virelians, observing from their ground stations, gasped. Their own technology had failed to make even a small dent in the storm, yet here was a modest human fleet moving with precision, creativity, and courage that no machine could match. Among the Virelians, whispers of hope and admiration spread. As the fleet continued, new challenges emerged. The Heartstorm reacted unpredictably, splitting into multiple currents that threatened different parts of the city simultaneously. Frigates formed temporary barriers, absorbing energy surges and shielding weaker ships. Civilian vessels, once thought too slow or fragile for combat, became energy anchors, holding parts of the storm in place while evacuation teams rescued Virelians trapped in damaged sectors. One of the most dangerous moments came when a sudden surge sent a massive lightning arc toward the fleet. The Horizon Dawn tilted sharply to absorb the blast, sacrificing part of its shield to protect smaller ships. Sparks danced across the hull, alarms blaring, but Alina's crew held steady. "Focus on formation, keep the pulse sequence steady," she ordered. Lieutenant Chen adjusted calculations in real time, combining energy bursts from multiple ships. Slowly, the storm began to shift. Sections that had threatened the capital were redirected, giving evacuation teams precious minutes to save civilians. The real test came when Alina realized that the Heartstorm's center, the heart itself, was unstable. If it remained intact, it could regenerate and destroy the capital despite all their efforts. She turned to her commanders. "We need to hit the center, not with weapons but with synchronized pulses. Every ship contributes. Precision is everything." The plan was daring. Each ship, from the smallest exploration vessel to the oldest frigate, would release timed energy bursts designed to destabilize the storm from within. Any deviation could create an explosion far worse than the storm itself. Yet the human crews worked with focus and trust, knowing their actions mattered not just for survival, but for proving the value of courage and intelligence. 3, 2, 1, execute, Alina called. Energy pulses from every ship shot toward the storm's center, intertwining like threads of light. The Heartstorm writhed, twisting violently as if resisting the intrusion. Sparks and arcs crackled across the sky, but slowly the center began to collapse in on itself. The storm's massive energy started to dissipate, breaking apart into smaller, harmless swirls. Alina's crew held their breath as the last pulse fired. The Heartstorm, the greatest threat Lyrath had ever faced, finally gave way. The skies over the capital cleared, revealing sunlight shining through the dissipating clouds. For a moment, silence fell across the fleet and the city below. Then cheers erupted from comms, both human and Virelian. On the ground, the Virelians poured into the streets, hugging one another, their voices full of relief and gratitude. Children laughed for the first time in days. Elder leaders approached the human fleet's communication channels, their voices trembling. "You saved us. Your courage and intelligence are beyond anything we imagined. Humans, you are truly remarkable." Alina felt a warmth she had never experienced in battle or diplomacy. "We are just humans," she replied, "doing what humans do best. We never give up. We adapt. We help. That is our strength." The aftermath of the storm was immense. Though much of the planet's surface had been affected, the human fleet had stabilized the worst-hit areas, guided evacuations, and prevented total destruction. Virelians began to repair infrastructure, rebuild cities, and restore communication networks. The humans stayed long enough to assist, sharing techniques for energy stabilization and disaster management. Other species, observing from afar, could hardly believe what they had witnessed. The fleet that had been dismissed as weak and outdated had accomplished what others could not. The smallest fleet had turned the tide of a planetary catastrophe. Word of their heroism spread across star systems, establishing a reputation that no weapon could match. Alina reflected on what had happened. Strength was not always measured in size or firepower. The human fleet had been outnumbered by nature itself, underestimated by others, yet they had triumphed through ingenuity, courage, and teamwork. Every ship, every crew member had contributed, proving that even modest forces could achieve greatness when united by purpose. Lieutenant Chen approached her, smiling. "Captain, I never imagined our pulses could actually influence something that large. The data we collected, it will revolutionize how we approach energy storms in the future." Alina nodded. "And it will serve as a reminder that humans do not give up. Even when we appear weak, we find ways to win." The Virelians offered their deepest gratitude. Their leaders presented Alina and her commanders with ceremonial gifts and shared knowledge that had never been available to outsiders. Diplomatic channels opened, and an alliance between humans and Virelians was formed, strengthened by trust and mutual respect. As the human fleet prepared to depart, Alina looked back at Lyrath, now peaceful and alive once more. "We came as a weak fleet," she said softly to her crew, "but we leave as proof that humans shine brightest when the odds are against us." The fleet ascended into space, leaving behind a grateful civilization and a legend that would spread across the stars. News of the humans' courage and brilliance reached far corners of the galaxy. Ships from distant worlds paused to observe, scholars recorded every detail, and young aliens dreamed of a species that could do the impossible without arrogance, without claiming superiority, simply through heart, mind, and willpower. In the weeks that followed, Lyrath thrived. Cities rebuilt faster than expected, aided by human technology and advice. Violians celebrated the humans as heroes, not for weapons, not for size, but for their ability to think, adapt, and act in ways no one else could. Humanity had not just saved a planet, they had set an example for all intelligent life. Elena, aboard the Horizon Dawn, reflected on the journey. Other species may have strength, size, and firepower, she said to her crew, but humans have something that is often underestimated: creativity, courage, and the refusal to give up. That is why we matter. That is why we will always shine. As the fleet disappeared into the stars, a new reputation for humanity was born. Across the galaxy, whispers of their courage traveled faster than light. Tales of a small, underestimated fleet saving an entire civilization became legend. And for every alien civilization watching, it was a simple but powerful lesson: never underestimate humans.